Welcome back to another episode of Paranormal Unveiling with your host, psychic medium, and lead investigator for the Paranormal Science Investigators team, Josh. Now sit back, relax, and enjoy the show while we talk about pretty much whatever the hell we want, as long as it's weird, true, creepy, controversial, or informative about the paranormal. So follow me as I try to give you a peek behind the veil. Welcome back to another show of Paranormal Unveiling, where you can get your weekly fix of the paranormal. Today, I have a super guest with me that I have been watching for a great many months, years actually. I highly respect this man, not just for his opinions, but for the evidence he has caught and shown. And he's a big creator that most of you will know. Probably all of you that are listening to this podcast will know. A good friend of mine, Mr. Brandon, Real Ghost Hunter 1. Say hello, Brandon. How are you?
How's it going, Josh? How's it going, everybody? How are you? Thanks for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm super excited to have you on the show. We've talked many times before doing lives on TikTok, and I value your opinions on the paranormal. They're always very well thought out. You're educated in a lot of things as far as the paranormal goes. You've been doing this for a long time. How many years have you been investigating the paranormal?
Actually investigating probably about 12 years, and about 5 years before that of intrigue and research. And I did all the research I felt that I needed to do before I was ready to jump into it. But when I say I've been doing it since then, it's not like I do it once a year for 12 years. It's like I've been doing it a lot, continuously. And I've learned just as much through experiences as I have through research. So there's a lot to be said for both sides of that.
And you do a lot of private residential cases too, don't you?
The majority of what I have done up to date it would be about 90%, 90-10 private investigations.
Right. A lot of the stuff you're a lot like me, where it's been, like I say, 90%, like you said, private residential. And a lot of that you can't show people. And
privacy factor comes into play. People don't want the insides of their homes displayed to the public for obvious reasons.
Right. Now, I know sometimes I will reference a case, or some of the evidence that I may have caught. I don't give out specifics or anything like that. Do you also? Are you okay with talking about some of the things you've seen during these cases?
There's as long as I don't give direct response as far as who they are, where they are, or any names. Obviously, I can reference all sorts of stuff. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Now, what got you started, kind of wanting to get into the paranormal?
This is a very popular question. It comes up in my lives an awful lot.
Right.
It's a longer story, but I'm going to make it short for you. It all started when I was approximately 7 years old. I went to my stepdad's parents' house, which would be my step grandparents. And his dad at the time would say, "Watch out for Philip. He lives in the closet. If you're not good, he's going to come out and get you."
Oh, geez.
So, yeah. So that terrified us as kids. And they have a pool table in the basement. And whenever we would go down there, we'd go down there with my cousin Tony, step cousin, if you will. And he was significantly older than I. But he would, kind of, hey, take the kid down there and and keep them company and keep them out of our hair for a little while is basically
Right.
how it went. But I kept asking him because I would hear this voice out of nowhere, and I thought it was him. I would keep asking him, "What did you say? What did you say?" And he'd keep looking at me like I didn't say anything, like you crazy little kid, just you know, play pool and be quiet, you know. And that grew to when we would go over there for holidays, and when I would go into the bathroom, I would hear it. When I would go downstairs to get something out of the chest freezer, I would hear it. Um, and how, after all these years, what I've realized is I shouldn't have been scared of Philip. Philip was a spirit that resided in that home who probably just wanted attention
Hmm.
and may or may not have, how do I put it, adopted that name, Philip, and used it to his advantage because he was getting attention. He was getting attention. He had a name, and he's like, okay, I'll be your Philip, you know,
Right.
whatever. And then they both passed away, and that pretty much ended. But my curiosity kept going,
Right.
so I started looking into it, started studying it, joined a few paranormal teams. The very first team I joined was the biggest one here in Wisconsin. I went up the rankings. Within 6 months, I was second in command on the team.
Awesome.
Started leading events, started doing this. And the reason that I moved up so fast, and keep in mind, there's 20 some people on this team.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And it became known as I was the guy to go get or to call or bring in when they were having problems getting evidence. Because for some reason, when I was around, we would get EVPs, we would get, more stuff. To this day, I'm still not 100% sure why. But that's what pretty much got me into it, and then created my own team called Cool Touch Paranormal about 12 years ago, and maybe 10 years ago. And it's still going today.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
So you referenced that they would call you when they were getting slow on evidence. And I
Right.
know that you've posted a few things about a picture that you caught with a face over your shoulder, which is
Yeah.
I know, a very popular picture. And for me was it's like the Holy Grail almost of
To me, it is. To me, it is. It's absolutely the best and most terrifying thing for me to look at.
right. So when I saw that picture, I was just like flabbergasted for lack of a better term. I was like, holy crap,
Do you
look
want
at
me to
that.
tell the story? Is this what we're getting to? Do you want me
Well, you definitely
to?
can, but here's the question I really want to ask you.
Okay.
Um, and if you don't want to elaborate, that's fine. But is there potentially a reason why you would be the guy to call to drum up evidence? Is there maybe a little bit of the mediumship side attached with that?
I believe there may be. I don't publicize that very much. I did go to medium classes and stuff like that and learn how to deal with energy and spiritual reading and all of that. But I don't publicize that
Right,
mainly because it's not my main focus.
right,
Um, does it come into does it can I use that as an advantage during paranormal investigations? Absolutely. Absolutely.
right,
Uh, it is a lot nicer being able to, sense when things are around and when they're not. It makes things a lot easier. And it's nothing is 100%.
true.
It still feels like even though you can sense it, you're still second guessing yourself all the time.
Right,
Uh,
right.
you're
It
still
helps you.
wondering if your instincts are correct.
Right. It helps you to focus in on an area a little more than wasting time where you're not getting anything. You can focus in on go, okay, well, I think right here is where we need to be.
Right. Yeah.
And I
Exactly.
know you don't publicize that side of you. I know I've asked you during lives and you just were like, eh.
Yeah. Yeah. Well,
Um,
I don't. It's enough. See, when I started paranormal investigating or ghost hunting, if you will, whatever, and real quick, the reason I call myself Real Ghost Hunter 1 is because Real Paranormal Investigator is too damn long of a name for TikTok.
Right.
So that's why
Okay.
I went with Ghost Hunter. It's easier to say.
Right.
So oh god, there's so much that goes with it. Basically, they would call me in to get more evidence, and it's very widely known, especially in the state of Wisconsin where I am. All the teams around here know that if I'm around, they're probably going to get something.
Right.
Okay. If not multiple things. Why that is, I'm still not sure, but I believe it's because I'm open. I believe in the spirit realm. I believe in both helping the people that are involved and also the spirit. Because one thing that I've come to learn is even when people think they have an evil entity in their home, if you go there with the intent to banish whatever is there out of their home and make things happy, 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 that's not how it's going to work.
Mm.
It's much better to go there, figure out what spirit you have, okay, and then try to help that spirit do what they need to do so that they don't need to terrorize the family.
Right. Right.
Nip it in the bud, get that spirit help that it wants or desires or the attention or whatever it's seeking, to the point where it can move on and leave the family alone. That's how I like to approach things.
Right. And that's a great approach. And I have found in my cases that a lot of times what people fear that, so it becomes scary for them.
Oh,
But
very much.
once you start gathering evidence of what this is, who this is, what they're looking for, once you know more, it becomes a lot less scary.
Right. Well, absolutely.
I went to houses where they were freaked out. They were hearing voices, things were getting moved, people were getting touched, that sort of thing. And through investigation, caught EVPs and, kind of made an educated guess of what this could be.
Right.
And once that family knew, it wasn't so scary. And they were like, well, look, you don't got to leave our house. Just, don't freak us out when we're, sitting by ourselves. And they were okay with it once they understood what and who it was. And there's that, coexistence that can happen there.
That's the best. And sometimes you're not fortunate enough to get that. You get people that are so scared and so terrified that they just can't function, knowing that there's something they don't understand in the home. Right. In which case, and I'll admit, I have tried to negotiate with the spirits. Well, I've tried to negotiate with them, try to get them to understand what they're doing is hurting themselves.
Right.
But when you go in and you try to say, hey, what you're doing is you're scaring these people, and you're making them call us or other people and try to get rid of you. So if you just stop scaring them,
right,
you'll be fine.
Right.
Just leave them alone. They won't call in people to sage and do cleansings and stuff and attempt to get rid of you.
Right.
And can I say if that actually worked? I don't know. But I have a heart feeling that it has helped.
I've been on a few cases where we've done cleansings, like some basic light stuff and some more hardcore cleansing rituals, and the family can tell the difference. We can tell the difference before and after. So I think it actually works. But the thing is I think the not knowing is the worst part for people. And if there's somebody that's just like, look, I don't care who it is, I want it gone, I want it out of here. We try to help them too, but I think a lot of times it's been my experience that people are a lot more forgiving of being scared when they know who it is. I've even had some families go, oh, okay. We've caught names and stuff on EVP and SB7 and stuff like that. Say, look, here's who we think it is. This is what we think their name is. And they're like, oh, okay, well, they talk to them. And now it's not scary.
Right.
Which,
that makes a lot of sense. And I didn't mean to say that cleansings don't work, because they absolutely will.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
But not every time,
That is true. There are some strong ones out there that it's going to take more than once, or you're going to be at it more
Well,
than you
and
think you will.
risk, you always take that risk of upsetting them instead of getting rid of them.
Right, right,
It makes it worse for the people that have to live there. So you have to
right.
be careful with that too.
Absolutely, absolutely, totally agree. And the reason why I brought up the whole mediumship thing is because of that picture. Were you not at a kind of medium type place when you caught that picture?
I mean, mentally,
Well, no, I can't. It's been so long ago now, but uh, wasn't that like a development circle or something like that you were at, or no?
it was actually in the basement of a very haunted location, but it was most recently a bar.
Oh, okay.
Uh, and it was in the basement of that. It used to be a funeral home where they had the crematory right around the corner from where we were sitting.
Oh, wow.
So there's a lot going on all in one location.
Right.
It was a train station, barber shop, a car lot, a few different cars. So it's gone through several different businesses throughout all the years here. But when you investigate the same place time and time again, you get to know what spirits are around most of
Oh,
the time. Uh,
absolutely.
dare I say, you get to form a relationship with these spirits.
Hmm.
I had one, I called him Crazy Chris. Whenever I called on Crazy Chris, he would always give me some sort of response, almost every single time.
Wow.
And it was after investigating there for a year straight. It
Oh,
was like,
yeah, yeah.
every weekend doing public tours, bringing in new people, bringing in all this energy for them.
Hmm.
They seem to like that. They formed the trust there.
Right.
I
Yeah,
wasn't there to try to get rid of them or
right.
or anything like that. And then you've got I don't know. There's a bunch. So, but
Right.
yeah, was in a bar. And this was prior, just prior to when I started doing those classes.
Oh, okay. That's what it was. Okay.
Yeah, it was just prior to when I started doing those classes. And that's part of the reason that I went to these classes, is because I wanted to learn all I could, because I wanted to develop sight, which is probably the most difficult you can develop,
Mhm.
as far as gifts go. Still have not developed that as far as I'd like to. But again, I usually shy away from that. As you know, I shy away from that topic.
Right.
Uh, I just use what I can to promote the evidence that I do get.
Right.
As
Right. It's kind of like for me where I even hate the title of being called a psychic medium. I just feel like that's not right. But
mm,
I have that on my bio that I'm a gray walker psychic medium, only because everybody I've ever given a reading for says, why don't you?
right.
I've given private readings like that. But um let me ask you, how, when you were hearing the voices in the basement as a
Mhm,
kid,
mhm.
was anybody else hearing those voices, or it was just you?
No, as a matter of fact, I was asking everyone in the house if they've heard it, and nobody else said yes. Everybody said no, they can't hear it, and which boggled my mind as a 7 and 8 year old kid.
I hate.
Like, what the hell is going on here?
Right.
Um, but again, it's like, even now, thinking about it, it's like, when I'm thinking about the 7 and 8 year old kid, I'm like, were you just a kid with an imagination? Like, did it happen? But you've heard these things, these voices, these things that were said. Like, how can that be? You always self-doubt. There's always self-doubt, no
Yeah.
matter what. And it messes with your mind. Um, but I know what happened. I know what happened.
Right.
It's just, over time you develop self-doubt, you know?
That's part of the problem too, and I think development actually helps with that. Because I know when I was starting out to understand the things that were happening and why I was getting the things I did,
Hmm.
there was a lot of self-doubt where now I'm not cocky, but I kind of trust my what I'm getting. Because I do hear sometimes that it sounds like you're clairaudient. I do see sometimes it's not as much as I would like to be honest with you.
Hmm.
Um, but a lot of mine is just claircognizance. It's like I just know the information. But I feel when I was a kid, there was a lot of things that happened that I thought everybody could do until I figured out not everybody can do that.
Oh,
Uh,
sure.
I used to hear people talk before they spoke, which
Hmm.
was a really weird thing for me growing up, trying to figure out why did they just say what I heard in my head. Uh,
Right.
and for a while, I thought I was placing the idea to them psychically, maybe.
Sure.
When I was a teenager, I was like, am I telling them to say that? Like, are they getting that from me, or am I just hearing them? Like, I couldn't figure it out.
Hmm.
Uh, it's crazy, but I would love to hear more about your abilities, but I know, you know,
And I mean, that's more for private conversation.
right, right, and we'll
But
save that
like
for
I
that.
said,
But
I don't dwell on that.
right, and I know you don't, so I don't want to push that on you because there's lots of other stuff that I want to get into with you, anyways. But I find it fascinating personally that side of you. I find probably one of the most fascinating parts about you.
well,
But
yeah, I'm sure you saw my video about, well, I don't know if you saw it or not, but I posted one particular thing that had happened in one of the classes. I was sitting in a chair blindfolded and they had me
yes,
read.
I
Okay,
remember that.
that's probably the most detailed I've ever been
Mm-hmm.
dealing with that. So yeah, so anybody listening, if you haven't seen it, go
Yeah,
check it out.
go check it out. Give it a like.
Yeah, right.
Right. So so we'll talk about that some other time when we have you more time, but because like I said, I'm highly fascinated by that side of you. But let me ask you, you do a lot of storytelling. Like you're very well known for your storytelling.
Yes.
I would even venture to say that if you are on TikTok and you haven't heard Brendan, if you haven't seen his video in the first place, you live in a cave, but um, you are well known for your storytelling. Your videos that you do for the stories that you tell are fascinating. What do
Thank you.
you look for in a story that makes you go, you know what? I want to do a video on that. That's,
That's a great question. Actually, I'm surprised nobody's asked me that before. When I all my stories come from very few resources. Either, but the main thing is it has to have at least partial validity with documentation to the story.
right.
A great resource is, um, what do they call it? Um, I want to say police paperwork, but
Police reports.
police reports.
Yeah.
Yes. Stories taken from actual police officers are my favorite. I
Mm-hmm.
love officer stories. I love paramedic stories, fireman stories, all of that.
Right.
That's what intrigues me. So that's what I go to first. But every story I tell uh, is either 100% true or told to me as 100% true.
Okay.
Uh, so that's what makes it more intriguing because I feel like even when I tell a story, even if it's not that scary of a story, it makes it more scary because it actually happened.
Right. Right.
Like this
Right.
really happened to these people. Uh and one in particular, I did one about uh four officers went to a call of this man trapped in a bathroom, and his sister was pounding on the door after he had her chained up. She broke through the chain because she was possessed by something, and she was clawing at the door. He had claw marks on his chest before he got into the bathroom. The police got there. She attacked all four police officers.
Wow.
The guy on the call, the dispatcher, was on the phone, and they transferred it over to an officer. He heard a voice that was coming through in a different language he couldn't understand, and it said it was so deep that it was shaking things in the background.
Oh, wow.
And it's an amazing story, and it's one of my favorites.
Yeah.
So look for that one too.
There you go. That I've always just wanted to ask you, and I don't think I have before, is what draws you to a story? Because, like I said, you do an amazing job at the storytelling portion of paranormal.
A lot of work into them.
Yeah, I can only imagine the amount of reading and research that you're looking at just to tell that story, because you're always so very fluid. Like, I've seen lots of people tell stories about, this or that, but you're always so fluid and knowledgeable, and just, it's like right on point.
I've learned that if you pause too long, people tend to swipe.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. It's hard to keep people's attention.
Exactly. So try to keep it going.
Okay, so I know that you are one of the very few people that I know that I believe has actual haunted dolls.
Okay.
What is your belief on how dolls or an item becomes haunted in the first place? Is it an attachment?
Oh, I've talked about, I've talked about this several times. We're going back many years ago. It was thought that an enchanted or haunted doll, if you will, was the result of a witch's curse.
Mm-hmm.
That's how, to my knowledge, that's how it all began.
Right.
With that, whether that's true or not, I don't know. That's just the first stories I've heard.
Right.
So basically, the witch would trap you into that for eternity. Now, whether that's true or not, I don't know. But another theory that I've come up with is it makes a very good hiding place to a spirit or entity, if you will, that is afraid of being judged, afraid of crossing over, afraid of being possibly sent to a bad place. Right. So with that fear, they hide. And if they're not out in the open, if they're in a vessel of some sort, that helps hide them. That's another theory. Another one is just that the owner of that particular doll loved it so much that they just didn't want to leave. They just didn't want to leave that doll behind because they were.
That's a not to interrupt you, but that's a scenario that I don't think I've quite considered as much in my belief system, and I think it's a great thing that you bring up. That's a very good theory.
Well, it goes along with the whole, well, why do paranormal investigators go to cemeteries? Because why would a spirit hang out in a cemetery? Right. And it kind of goes with the same question. And my theory is they're only there when you're there.
Right. I believe that as well.
They come to visit you visiting them.
Right.
Other than that, the only conceivable notion I have is that the spirit is so vain that they refuse to leave their body behind.
Right.
That's mine. You can't have it. I'm not going anywhere. That's the only other thing I can come up with as to why they would be there. But I really believe that they know when you're going to be there, and they will come and visit while you're there because they know you're there to talk to them. It's kind of like a meetup place.
Right. And I believe the same thing, because people have asked me that same question is, why do you go to a cemetery? Mm-hmm. Well, because sometimes that's the best place to see who you're going to try to call in almost. You know what I mean? Like, they come to visit you because you're visiting them.
Right.
To be honest with you, cemeteries have always been a very peaceful place for me personally. I think I've caught more evidence outside the cemetery gates than I have inside the cemetery gates. But
I'll often just drive through a cemetery or walk through a cemetery. If I sense something, I'll say hi to them.
Right. Yeah.
Because how many of, like, to everyone listening, how many of your relatives are in the cemetery that when was the last time you went and visited them?
True.
You know, some people go years without visiting their relatives in the cemetery.
Right.
And I'm not saying that you have to, but you know, once in a while, if I'm not doing anything and I'll drive through and just, calmly, hey, how you doing? If I sense something there, I'm not saying I see them standing there,
Right.
but I know they're there. I know they're there. So even just by a polite wave or hello could mean the world to them.
Right. And I don't think people consider almost the feelings of, a spirit. A lot of the cemeteries like that are around here, or a lot of the spirits that are around here, I mean, we're talking hundreds of years.
Oh, sure.
I mean,
Oh,
I
yeah.
have a cemetery just right around the corner here where the earliest gravestone said the man was born in 1745. How long has his family not been around?
Right.
So when
Right.
I go there and he's like, "Oh crap, these guys are talking to me,"
Yeah.
how good that makes them feel to be
Oh,
acknowledged.
well, it's kind of like being the nerdy kid in high school when you go to a high school party. You see everybody partying, but you're stuck in the corner because nobody knows you. You don't know anybody. You're
Right.
just sitting there all quiet. Well, heck, all of a sudden, here comes somebody walking over to talk to you. I can only imagine how great that would feel.
Right. Right. Exactly. I think feelings of the spirit get ignored a little bit sometimes. I don't think, because I see a lot of investigators. It's almost like they're a grinder monkey. Like, hey, do this for me, do that for me, but they don't consider just talking to one, saying hello, how are you?
That is one of my pet peeves, and it's very hard. I try not to judge too many people, but if you're going to make a promise, keep your end of the promise. You know,
Right. Right.
like if you say, "Well, if you respond to this, we'll leave, we'll get out," and then
Right.
they'll do it, and they'll get the response they're looking for, and then they'll be like, "Well, do it again, do it again. Can you
Right.
do it again?" No, they fulfilled their end of the bargain. It's your turn. You
Right.
need to do what you promised you were going to do and leave or go to a different area like you said you were going to.
Right.
That's very upsetting to watch when they do
Right.
that.
And I agree. It's kind of hard. And there's a specific reason why I never ask that question or make that statement is if you do something, I'll leave,
Mm-hmm.
because I'll bet you 90% of the time I've ever said that, something happens and I'm like, shit, I gotta
Well,
leave
right.
now.
Yeah. Well, and a lot of times you can offer a treat as well. You can offer something that they might like you can light a cigarette for them or put some alcohol in a little cup out for them to
Right.
smell, or heck, who knows if they can drink it or not. But just make it a little, not a, I don't want to call it an offering, but more of a reward,
Right.
perhaps.
It's a reward. Yeah, no, I agree. And one thing that was brought to my attention too, because I used to, especially for a long time, I used to just actually, I was kind of like that. Like I was bringing up the worst day of their life. And, I had somebody uh, say, look, if that were you, would you want them bringing up the worst day of your freaking life?
No,
And
no, and
everybody asked the question, how did you die?
I never do.
I've become a little more compassionate as far as who wants to remember the worst part of their life.
And I don't know if you've heard me say this, but I've said it hundreds of times over the last few years while I was live. Is there's always two questions that I never ask. One is how did you die, and the other is when will I die?
Oh yeah.
And there's very different reasons for each one. I never ask how do you die because it is a popular theory that there are many spirits out there who live in a uh, loop, a memory loop.
Right.
Okay. If they're lucky, it is a happy memory. Now, take that happy memory spirit who's reliving that. And I'm not talking about a residual thing, that's
Right.
different.
Mm-hmm.
I'm talking about a spirit who is constantly rewarded by reliving their one of their best times in their life.
Right.
Okay. Now you get some, say, person come in and start asking them about their death, which is transforming that happy memory into the memory of their death.
Right.
And who the hell are you, who the hell am I even to do that to someone? I just don't feel that's right. The other question is, you never want to ask when you are going to die, because no matter what kind of an answer you might get, that very well could turn into a self-fulfilling prophecy. So, oh, I'm going to die on September 8th of, 25. Well, chances are that's going to get in your head and you're going to be thinking about it every single day from now until then.
Right.
And then on that day, you're going to be very careless. You're going to be like, today's my day. Okay, boom. And you're going to accept it.
Right.
You're going to walk into traffic,
Right. Right.
So,
I think a question like that affects free will. And I think that's a moral dilemma that people,
yeah.
I've asked that question once when I was younger, and the answer I got was, look, we don't do things that affect free will. Because even if I could tell you, I shouldn't tell you,
Right.
And I think spirits are kind of follow that a lot too. I can't think of any time where I've ever heard somebody asking that question, getting an honest answer anyways.
Yeah.
I mean, your experiences may be different, but
I have heard some people in real life asking this question and getting a response. Do I have an end game for that conversation? No, because I wasn't around when that time came, or that time hasn't come yet.
Right.
Oh.
Well, let's switch gears a little bit,
Okay.
because you and I have a fascination with some of the darker things that we can come across in the paranormal field. So let me ask you, have you worked on any demonic cases? And if you have, can you describe the case and maybe the knowledge you gained from being associated with that case?
Well, as far as a demonic case goes, these are very hard to talk about, and I don't like to talk about it because I've had one that was affecting someone else.
Mm-hmm.
I've had one that was affecting myself.
Okay.
The one that was affecting myself, we will not talk about today.
Understandable.
The one that was affecting someone else, it was basically, I was brought in at the last minute because of my faith. And I was asked by the priest to come along, who knew me, just to come along for that reason.
Right.
To make that end stronger.
Okay.
They know that, I don't want to go too far down the rabbit hole, but those of you who know will know.
Right.
And again, like I say, unless I'm in the thick of it, I don't like to bring it up. Everybody knows when you bring up that type of thing, that draws them in.
Right. And I'll be honest with you, I have described and here's the thing. I believe demonic cases are ultra rare.
Yeah, very, very rare.
Very rare. So in the 25 years I've been hopping around trying to do paranormal, I think I've only come across one case. Now, I did kind of describe what happened to me somewhat, but I did not give a lot of the details, because it shook my whole system. Like I had to reevaluate what the hell I was doing. So it's understandable that you wouldn't want to discuss that sort of thing.
I will go ahead and say this. No matter how much anyone has ever pissed me off, stabbed me in the back, no matter what, I still would not wish this on them.
Right.
It is not something to be toyed with. It is not something to take lightly. It is a very, very, there is nothing more serious.
I
And
agree. I
and
agree.
if when you go through something like that, it it terrifies you day and night,
Right.
and it never stops.
Right.
It's not, you never get a break. Forget sleeping, any of that. It's, you're done.
Right.
I
And
don't it's
for people that have been through the experience, they'll understand what
right.
I'm talking
Right.
about. For those that have not, um, we apologize, but it's a very traumatic experience that we don't necessarily really want to relive in detail. And the only reason I kind of told my story was to just so people would understand that when you're, out here bouncing around, you can get into things that are not necessarily what you want to get into.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, it's, like I always say, 95% of the stuff you're going to get is not trying to hurt you. But there are those 5%.
Oh, I would up that percentage, probably 99 point something.
Really.
Oh yeah, yeah. Well, unless you're counting just the a-hole ghosts out there.
Right. Yeah. I kind of am because, I've run across spirits that they're just kind of, as in life, so in death, they were jerks, bad people in life. They're not good people in death.
Mhm.
They don't have your best interest at heart when you're trying
Right.
to investigate them, and they will be nasty to you. And I think that gets, I don't know how you feel about it, but I think that actually gets confused with demonic a lot.
Oh,
Um,
definitely. Most definitely.
it's
Uh,
it's kind of
it,
crazy.
like I said, I've done a lot of private investigations. I can't tell you, I would say 90% of them think they have a demon in their home.
Right.
And it's not. It's just a ghost. They either have a trickster or they have just an a-hole ghost. You know,
Right. Right.
that's all they got, or it it's very easy. People today, because of all the television and media and everything, they throw that D word out all the time.
Right.
And and to me that's counterproductive, because not only do you not have one, but every time you say that, I think you're getting their attention.
Right. You're almost inviting it.
Exactly. Exactly. And
Right.
it's not good for anybody. It's just like people, how people in chats and stuff, and they'll laugh real hard and they'll say, "Oh, I'm dead." Like that's the most horrible thing you can say.
Right.
That's self-damning. Why you say that enough, your body's going to start thinking it.
Right. It's been my belief that words are manifesting. When you
Mm.
think of an idea, or you talk a certain way, or you
Hmm.
even believe a certain way, sometimes I think you bring things out that you necessarily didn't intentionally mean to. But uh I thought I would just turn that. I think the demonic is what a lot of people want to hear about. So
Sure.
that's why I had to ask the one question of, you know and
I
I
don't know how far we've made it down your list of questions. I know we didn't make it too far yet.
No, 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 we haven't. And that's okay. We'll just, like I said, we're free form here, man. We just talk about what we enjoy talking about. Um, but I want to ask you about Adam,
Oh,
because he's a very popular presence in
yes.
your many of your lives.
Yes.
Can you tell the listeners out there, how did you come across Adam,
Sure.
and
Um,
how did you figure out that that's who he was? Kind of the particulars about him, because you
just
know him
if
very
you
well.
want to hear Adam's story, that's fine.
Right. Yeah.
Um, I I first became aware of Adam when he was in Canada.
Oh,
He was at a couple's home. It was a family home. I was actually online friends with these people at the time,
okay.
and they have a very haunted home, and had all sorts of activity in their basement. And I became a fan, I guess, at first, and I was watching, and they had Adam there, and Adam showed up on their doorstep in a box
Oh,
with a
wow.
note. Yeah, with a note that said, "This is Adam. He's trouble, but he's your problem now."
That is messed up.
That's how. That's the beginning. That's what the beginning of Adam's story that I know.
Right.
So then they had him for a while. They had a 16, 17-year-old daughter in the home. They claim that Adam was getting, I don't want to say violent. In some way, shape, or form, he was getting nasty with everybody in the home,
Okay.
including her. And that's what scared the family was, they were trying to protect their daughter, which I totally get.
Okay. Understandable.
So they were looking to get rid of Adam. Well, and after a while, I've been watching it and communicating with these people, and I asked them, hey, if you're looking to get rid of them, I'd like to take them, see if I can find out more about them, do some other things, and see what we come up with.
Okay.
And after a while, they just sent them to me. So that's how I got Adam. Adam came in the mail in a box. I didn't realize he was here yet. I backed out of the driveway in my car, and keep in mind I had a blacktop driveway that was kind of crumbling a little bit, and I hit something on the back. I thought it was just a lump of blacktop,
Right.
and I ran over it with the front tire again. I'm like, and all of a sudden I get out into the street and I look back in the driveway and it looked like a cardboard.
That's all.
Uh-oh. Uh-oh.
Oh shit.
So I parked the car in the middle of the street. I didn't even, and I run up and I pick up, it's a box. All of a sudden I see a foot sticking out of the bottom.
Oh God.
I'm like, oh no, this is Adam. So I go run my errand. I come back. I open the box. Sure as hell, Adam was in the box. I ran him over twice with my car. So it wasn't a great start.
Right.
It wasn't a great start. So there was a little animosity there, I'm sure.
Of course.
Yeah.
Understandable.
Yeah. But the funny story about that is I had two prior dolls that I believed were haunted at the time.
Okay.
But they weren't saying anything. They got real quiet for about 2 weeks beforehand. The day Adam came into the situation, they started acting up. And from then on, once Adam got there, they went nuts. And one of them was Felipe. I don't know if you've ever seen Felipe.
Yes. Yeah.
And the other one was Blair. And so it was Blair and Felipe were my first. They are both gone now. But
now doesn't Paranormal Amy have one of them?
It's been a little bit. I did send them off to people. I think Amy got one, and maybe I think JC has the other one.
Okay.
But anyway, they've both had stuff happen with them once they got them. The reason, and I don't just ship off stuff like that. It was, we did a session where we asked them where they wanted to go. I said, it's your time to go. Where do you want to go? And there was a process, and they were picked.
Right.
They basically picked where they wanted to go. So coming back to Adam, he's basically, I want to say, jumped at me during a live broadcast when he was standing there, and he was talking. It started off, he was talking smack, and then all of a sudden, we kind of, how do I say this? He got used to my shit, and I got used to his.
Right.
And we kind of formed a bit of a bond, I guess you would say. I started, doing fun stuff with Adam, like making fun videos and funny stuff like that. Some people didn't like that, thought it was tasteless, blah, blah, blah. So I stopped. I took Adam out of the equation for the longest time. Well, and then maybe 8 months ago, I decided, enough's enough. I'm going to bring him back, because I still talk to him in the meantime. I still talk to him.
Right.
I talk to all of them, I've got a shelf, well, 2 shelves of we'll call them figures. I hate the DOLL word.
Right.
We'll
Artifacts, haunted artifacts.
Artifacts, yes. So, they're content. I like to think they're content.
Right.
And now Adam's back in the show, and
people love the guy.
He seems to be enjoying it. Everybody loves Adam.
Right.
Some
of the, for the listeners out there, when Brandon talks about, talking to them, not only is he physically talking to them, but they are talking back. I don't know if everybody can see, if you're watching the YouTube video version, you'll see that there is a portal box next to Brandon, and there has been some pretty entertaining conversations that have come through on that box, including him kind of goading you along, calling you certain names.
Oh, sure. Oh, you can,
and it's almost hilarious. It
is.
And that's a fucking bitch, I think, one time.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah. A bald fuck. He called me that.
Right. Yeah.
It's some people would be like, oh my God, I can't believe that you let that happen, or you let that. And you just got to understand, Adam's 64 years old. He loves heavy metal music. He's just, if you can picture that as a human being,
right.
I mean, you're going to get it. It's like, it's your buddy,
Right. It's like a couple of guys sitting around having a
exactly
shit. Yeah.
Right.
Busting each other's balls. Yeah. And he has become a big star of your lives where you bring him in. I think people enjoy that a lot. So I definitely had to bring Adam up because, he's a pretty popular figure amongst your fans.
I'm thinking maybe I should grab Adam and show him on the screen for people that
absolutely can.
All right.
For those that are watching on YouTube, you will be able to see this. If you're listening to the audio podcast, I encourage you to pop over to paranormal_investigators to watch the video version, because this guy right here is super entertaining. You can watch Brandon, Real Ghost Hunter 1 on TikTok. You can watch his videos where he talks to Adam. It's great.
Thank you. He doesn't look like your typical haunted, scary doll. You can tell by the look on his face that he's a character. He's a character. All right, ready? Here he is.
The least.
This is Adam, the haunted doll.
Right, and everybody loves this guy. He just looks mischievous.
And, he does.
When you have communications, you can tell that he is.
So that's Adam.
Right.
He's very popular. Very, very popular.
Yeah, I definitely had to bring up Adam because he's one of the things I know when I see your lives and you're doing communications, you're like, well, everybody goes, bring out Adam. Where's Adam? And, everybody's asking about him. And you're like, okay, let me bring him.
All right, I'll get it.
And then we start hearing weird stuff over the portal box of, him answering questions.
He can get very entertaining. He can get very entertaining.
Right. And if you know him, if you've watched these videos and watched these lives, you know kind of the relationship you and him have going. So it's even more entertaining, I think, once you understand that. But
I think we get better communication with Adam because I don't have any doubts. Like, I'm not asking if he's here. I'm not asking, do you exist? Because I know.
Right. There's no doubt.
I know he exists.
There is no doubt.
Right. So.
Right.
So there's a level of confidence there with Adam.
Right. Yeah. There is. Like I said, if you go to Real Ghost Hunter 1 on TikTok and you watch the videos, I highly encourage you to do so. Only because not only is Brandon a great guy and a great creator, but the videos that he posts, especially since we're talking about Adam, it's undeniable. I mean, direct response. We're talking direct intelligent response that you can't
it's very hard
yes at all.
Yes.
Right.
Yes. People still do. People still do, believe
There's
it or
always
not.
there's always going to be the one that says, "Oh, you're playing something pre-recorded," or yeah.
I even went so far as to, because I did that. I did a video that went very well. And it was a bunch of clips of what happened one 3 hour session of a portal box session in my attic. And the hate comments about, well, you've got a microphone hooked up to something in another room, somebody's talking through it. Now,
Right.
to me, to the average person, that would upset them that they're getting called out as a fake. To me, I was honored that I'm getting such great responses that people think I have somebody on a microphone
Right.
in another room.
Right.
I mean, how awesome is that?
Right.
I took that as a compliment. So what I did was, a few nights later, went live again, showed everybody. I picked up the box. I said, here's the cable. This is going to the SB11 Spirit box.
Mm-hmm.
There's this. And this is the cord that's going to the power cord. That's the only thing's coming out of here.
Right.
And I set it back down. I panned the room. I'm the only one here. Let's try this again, see what I get. Happened again. Constant, intelligent responses.
Right.
And people didn't know what to say. They didn't know what to say. They're like, well, I guess it's not a microphone.
Right. Yeah. If you're not necessarily a believer, and that's perfectly fine, that, I always tell people, I'm not here to make you believe. I'm just showing you what I'm getting. And if you want to get on the ride, have at it. If you don't, that's fine too. I'm not here to make you believe.
Right.
But
I say that as well, that it's not up to me to make you believe.
Right. It's not my
I'll
job.
show you what I show you. And if you believe me, if you believe what you see is real, that's great. If you don't believe what you say or what I say is real, that's okay too, as long as you're entertained by it.
Right.
Then you come back and watch again.
Right. You don't have to be a believer, but if you are, the interactions that you get through, especially that specific portal box that you have, has been, phenomenal. You have that thing tuned in. I think you've created a bond with it, so it works even better.
Absolutely. Yes. Yeah,
but
you're probably confused some of your listeners by saying that, but yes, it is a thing that you can bond with your equipment, and it makes it that much. That's very similar to what I've done with Adam.
Right. Yeah. Things work better. The more you use them, the less you question them, the more evidence you collect on them, you create a bond with that. That's almost like, it's almost like a tray you hand over to the other side to say, hey, here's my offering. We'll share back and forth, and you get that bond with them, with your equipment that, I've seen it too many times to discount it. Where you just turn on this app and you're going to test it out and you don't really get anything, or you use this device, you don't really get anything. But the more you use it and the more stuff you catch by it, the more connected you become to that, like, hey, this is my go-to, the better it seems to work.
Want to hear a surprising fun fact?
Yeah, absolutely.
I never used an app until I discovered TikTok.
Me neither.
Never used one ever.
Me neither.
Until I was at the Congress Plaza Hotel in Chicago investigating there, and it was my first, what I would like to call big live, where I had 700 people in there, which doesn't seem like a lot, but it's 700 people in there, and
that's a lot.
They were flooding the chat with use this app, and I'm like, why are you guys telling me to use an app? I've never. So literally, I downloaded it at the hotel,
right?
And that's the first time I ever used an app.
Now, what was your first one?
Necrophonic.
And well, since we kind of went there, there's a few apps that people tend to believe work a little better than some of the others, and for the most part, I think apps are for entertainment. That's my opinion.
Okay. Would you like my opinion?
Yes, that's exactly where I'm going with this. What is your opinion on the apps, and which ones do you believe garner that?
My opinion is this. Let me start off by saying they all work. They all work.
Okay.
That being said, you cannot trust everything you hear on these. especially like apps like Necrophonic, where they're constantly spitting out words. Okay. You need to get the actual intelligent answers to your questions or inquiries while you're doing it.
Mm-hmm.
Dare I say 90 some percent of it is just random app word BS.
Right.
Okay. But it's that gem, that diamond in the rough that you're looking for.
Right.
At the same time, for my own selfish purposes, I decided to try to debunk Necrophonic.
Okay.
And what I did, and I did this during a live, lots of people can contest to this. I started asking questions and I started getting intelligent answers. And I'm like, okay, well, let's test this out. And I wrote down a number on a piece of paper.
I remember
folded
this.
it. Yeah, I folded it up and I put it down, and I had a few dolls behind it, figures, if you will.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, okay, tell me, if you're so smart, tell me what's written on there. Now, keep in mind, just by me saying that is a bit of a
Goading them into it. Yeah.
it is a little goading, yes, provoking, perhaps,
Right.
some people say. But we can, that's a whole nother topic we can talk about.
Right.
But it wasn't until it was about 15, 20, 30 seconds in, and they started saying a couple numbers. Now, before I go any further, the fact that I asked them for a number that was written on a piece of paper, and they weren't saying colors, they weren't saying giraffe or frog or
Right.
or where am I or am I dead? They were saying numbers.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, it wasn't the right number, but the fact that even just the fact that I was asking for numbers and they were giving me numbers says
Right.
something. Okay.
Right.
It wasn't until I said, okay, this is an app. If I were to go to the SB7 or the SB11, the spirits that come through that have no problem guessing this number. Why can't you do it? Boom. I had two responses immediately after I said that. One was, hey, like, don't talk to me like that.
Right.
The second thing that came out was shouted at me, the number 4.
Mm-hmm.
Just said 4. And immediately I grabbed it on live, grabbed that piece of paper, unfolded it in front of the camera, opened it up, and it had the number 4 on it.
Right.
And I said, who said that? Who here said that? They said Felipe.
I remember this.
So, and again, that's on the profile. I think it might be on the profile still as well.
Right. There is some validity to apps, and I've had better luck with some than others. And I've tried
I do have a new favorite app, by the way. It's not Necrophone.
Oh, what is the new favorite?
My new favorite is Dead Wave.
So I just downloaded that. I just spent the $11 to download Dead Wave. I've yet to test it out, but I did download it.
All right. Secret time. That last video I did with all those things, that was Dead Wave.
Really?
Yep.
See, Dead Wave is it's almost has the same sound, or it's similar to the sound of Necrophonics, but there's a lot more control to the app.
I believe, well, if you use too much control, you're altering the situation. You just want to set it and forget it, you know, because otherwise it's too much human alteration. You just set it. I use, you can use up to 4 or 6 channels or whatever. I use 2. That's it.
Right.
No more. And I just let it go. And I get amazing. And the reason that I like it so much is the very first time I downloaded it, I turned it on and I got immediate phenomenal responses. And that has never happened to me before.
Wow.
With that. And I was just amazed.
That's pretty
So,
awesome. Like I was saying, I've tried all kinds of ones. I mean, if you go into your app store, there's a million of them.
mhm,
And I've tried this, that, and the other, and never had much luck. I've tried the GhostTube apps and had limited success. I've tried GhostTube Box, limited
yeah.
success. Now, when I did Necrophonics, I've gotten my greatest personal experience as far as an app communication with Necrophonics
Mhm,
during a live, actually. And I asked, hey, whoever's here, tell me your name, and we got the name of Ed, which,
okay.
as you know, on Necrophonics is not uncommon with
Right.
that particular app. You'll get an Ed, right? So I was thinking, I've heard 50 people use the same app and get the same name, right?
Mhm,
Okay, so Ed, if that's your name, what's your last name? And for privacy reasons and family, because they're here in my area,
okay.
I won't say the last name, but I got a last name, right? Uh,
Jones.
yeah, Smith, what kind of thing.
Right. Right.
Uh,
But it said the name.
it said a last name, and I was like, well, okay, well, so I kind of leaned over and I wrote down the name.
Mhm.
Um, in my state, we have a cemetery registry, so no matter what cemetery somebody is buried in within the state, each cemetery is supposed to keep a registry, and there's a state site that you can access and find names. So I looked in my area, and about
Mhm.
a mile down the road, next to a church, is a graveyard
Mhm.
that contained the name of the person who came across. Right.
Nice. Okay. Okay.
So what I did was it's only a mile down the road. Hey, let me go check out this guy's grave. So I wandered around the graveyard next to this church for 30 minutes trying to find this name.
Right.
Found him, found, family members that he's buried by.
Mhm.
Did some research on him to find out kind of who this guy was that was buried here, and found out some really cool stuff about the man. So on the very next live, I said, look, Mr. Ed and his name, uh,
Mhm.
I know you came through and told me your name, but on your headstone is your nickname. Can you tell me what your nickname is? And on Necrophonics, his
Mhm.
nickname came through, his exact
Really?
nickname.
That's
Probably
awesome.
the best communication through an app that I've gotten, even with
That's awesome.
Necrophonics. That was the one time that I
Now,
could tell you.
I'm struggling right now because I have to say this, that it is very, very hard for a guy like me to even admit that I dabble with the app thing. And it's
I
very
understand.
hard because all, professionally wise, if you want to call it, apps are laughed at. You know what I mean?
Right.
Not they're not even considered as a thing. But I have to say that I've had, I don't want to say irrefutable, but some really crystal clear, hard to deny evidence through them.
Right. Right.
And it's not all the time, and that's the only problem that I have with them is too many people, because anybody can get them
Mm-hmm.
and anybody can use them, but people are hanging on every word like it's an actual spirit, and they're making a conversation out of ramblings, and unfortunately that's just not what's happening. And
Right.
I don't want people to actually think they're talking to the spirit the whole time they're using it.
Right.
That's just, unfortunately, that's just not, and the people that make the apps will tell you the same thing.
Right. I think there's a level of audio pareidolia that happens with the apps like that, where it
Well,
sounds very similar to a word or something like that. I
mhm,
think I never did trust apps. And that experience that I had is what made me think, okay, well, maybe there is some validity to using these apps, but I still don't depend on them 100%. I know a lot of people like to hear them when you're doing investigations, but I don't depend on them because it's not
mhm.
really an accepted scientific tool.
What I would suggest to everyone who's listening is, if you are going on an investigation, your must haves would be some sort of EMF detector, like probably a K2. But I definitely suggest a digital voice recorder
Mhm.
for EVP responses. That is the best to me. when somebody shows me EVPs,
Right.
especially when they're alone, those are the best. When they record it alone, because there's nobody else there. Those are the best rock solid evidence that I've ever heard is
Absolutely.
EVP responses. And
Absolutely. I've even
that's
shared a couple with you before. I remember one in particular that was how I had it recorded. It was after the fire, so I didn't have a computer to put it through an audio program. So I kind of had to video the response, so it was hard to hear. But um, you were very honest about what you thought about what I'd caught, because what I was hearing was probably a little bit different than what you were hearing because of the recording of a recording. But
right.
you were honest about it, EVP. Well,
I
just
remember
don't hear
you
that.
sending it to me. I remember replying with, but I definitely heard something. I can't remember right this second what I thought I heard, but I remember I definitely heard something, and it did vary from what you said to listen for.
Right. I heard I am the watcher, or I'm a watcher, or something like that. I don't remember off the top of my head. It's been a while, but
Do you remember what I heard?
I don't remember what you're.
Okay. Well, that's not important. But anyways, the point is, there was something there. It might, because there's so much confusion, you can't call it a class A.
Right. Yes. Yeah.
But it was
Absolutely.
definitely something there.
Right. I'm a big fan of the voice recorder, like yourself, because if you catch something on there, like you said, especially when you're sitting there by yourself
Oh yeah.
and there's no noise going around, like I'm there by myself. I don't have my dogs out there,
Hmm.
nothing to make that noise. And then you hear something that wasn't there when you asked that question, is pretty remarkable in my opinion.
And I'll probably regret saying this because I know as soon as I say it, we're gonna start seeing a ton of it on TikTok. But my one of my favorite methods is what's called EVP burst sessions.
Oh, love them.
I it's one of my favorite all-time things to do. And those of you who don't know what it is basically you take your digital voice recorder and you record about a minute session
Right.
of you asking or talking. And keep in mind, when you are investigating, you don't have to rattle off questions continuously. You can just talk to them,
Right.
like talking to anyone, and they will eventually respond to you, and you'll get a real response. You don't have to specifically ask a question. It can just
Right.
be, you can ask like real easy questions, even, how are you feeling today? Or do you want to come out and play cards with us, or anything like
Right.
that? It's
I've
it's just the best.
I've asked, even not really asking a question, but just made mention of how nice the weather was.
Mm-hmm.
Just kind of average talking. Hey, man, it was so nice out today. I bet you like that.
Yeah.
And
So
caught
after
something.
I get the best responses when I'm not trying to get responses. It's
Right.
funny that
Right.
works. And but I have a story to that. But let me finish. Basically, for those of you who don't know, you record for a minute or so, even 30 seconds to a minute, and then immediately play it back
Right.
so that you get your response. If there's a response on it, you get it right away, and then you can change up what you're doing depending on what you heard.
Right.
On
You
what
can ask different questions based on the answer.
Exactly. So that's why that's so beneficial when you're doing that type of
I'll
investment.
be honest with you. I like doing the burst sessions. I usually go 30 seconds to a minute, like you do.
Mm-hmm.
And because if I do catch something, one, I can adjust my direction, and
Yeah.
two, because of a selfish reason, I don't have to listen to 5 hours of recording and have 4 hours and 58 minutes of that be absolutely nothing.
Oh,
So the burst
I can't.
sessions, if I caught something, I save that file.
There is nothing like listening to 6 to 8 hours of nothingness,
Right.
trying to hear something,
Right.
because any little crack, neat, whispered, any type of thing
Stomach
that you
growl. Yeah.
don't immediately recognize, you got to back up a couple of times, re-listen to
Yeah.
it 5, 6 times to determine if it's anything.
Right.
And then heaven forbid it is something, because then you got to replay it 35 more times
Right.
to try to figure out what it is.
Right.
You know?
Yeah,
Unless it's
my
Class
reasons
A,
are a little,
it's
yeah,
right in
my
your
reasons
face.
are a little bit selfish, but I do love burst sessions because it allows you to focus and pinpoint your questioning.
Mm-hmm.
So what is your story associated with that one?
Well, we got talking about it. Having a hard time remembering. What the hell was I going to say? We were talking about burst sessions. Well, you said something else in there, but I wanted to come back to it. I'm trying to remember what you said that triggered that story from me.
You're talking to an old man. I don't remember.
Well, if it comes back to me, it'll come back to me. But unfortunately, it flittered away from me for the moment. You gotta have to cut that part out.
No, that's staying in, buddy.
No, no.
Well, my technique of investigating has always been the communication part of it. Sure, catching a apparition manifest on camera would be, gold to me, but even more so is the communication point of it. If I can get good communication, that's worth more to me than even seeing something. You know what I mean? That's just been my direction, because I've always wanted to hear what they have to say to tell their story.
Right.
They don't necessarily have to show me themselves to tell that story. It's great if they would. Don't get me wrong. I would video that all day and love the evidence, but
well, yeah,
EVPs, SB7s, that sort of thing have always been my thing, because I love the communication part of it. But let me change a gear a little bit again on you.
Sure.
And I'm going to bring up a topic that is widely debated. And
all right,
you've already seen this.
I already know what you're gonna say.
You probably do. What is your opinion on how to differentiate an actual orb from, say, a bug, moisture, dust, or a lens flare? And just beyond that, what do you think an orb actually is? Because I've heard you give your opinion on what you think an orb is, and I think it's fascinating.
All right. Let me start off by saying what I believe an orb is. Now, people listening are going to roll their eyes when I say this, but once you hear the reasoning, you'll understand why I say it.
Mm-hmm.
I believe, and let's use the term light anomaly, because I hate the word orb.
Okay.
I believe a light anomaly is what is the form that some particular spirits use to travel. I believe that's how they go from one place to another.
Right.
Because it takes far less energy as a small piece of energy. You know what I'm saying? A small ball of light, if you will, versus a full body apparition.
Right.
And the reason that I say that is because I have seen very documented evidence of a full-bodied apparition transforming into what most people call an orb and flying away.
Mm-hmm.
And I've also seen it in reverse. I've seen, and this was on a ring camera right outside someone's porch.
Oh, wow.
Where you see this, what, again, light anomaly come into the screen and then form into a full apparition, a person. And that person then walked off screen.
Wow. So you think it's a mode of travel?
I think it's a mode of, it's a way of travel for them.
Okay.
Now,
that's what I found interesting.
Differentiating, is that the word I'm looking for?
Mm-hmm.
Between what is and what isn't is very, very, very difficult. And the reason I say that is because there's a lot of false information out there on them.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of people are saying, and I'll cover some of them. Some of the myths are, well, if it's a certain color, it means that they're a different mood. They're angry, they're happy, they're sad, they're
Right.
a husband, a wife. Okay. If you believe that, okay. I don't. I simply think it's the uh, molecules in the air reflecting off its surroundings, giving it a color.
Right.
Okay. That's all I think it is. I'm not saying I'm right, but that's just how I feel about it. The other one, another one is okay, where if you zoom in, if you see a face, that means it's an orb if it's got a face in it.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Well, hang on there, camper. if you if you look up matrixing and
Mm-hmm.
pareidolia, those two terms are very important in the paranormal field.
Very.
And if you go outside and you look at a giant tree down the block and you look at all the pretty leaves on that tree and you try to see a face, guess what you're going to see?
Right.
You're going to see a face,
Well,
you know?
we are pre-wired to see faces.
Yeah.
It's in our DNA, basically.
We use faces to identify people,
Right.
and we do it so much that our brain is constantly looking for faces.
Right.
And it tricks us into believing there's a face when it's just really randomness that looks close to what a face would look like. So when you zoom in on we'll call it a dust particle or a water drop or anything like that, if you're looking for a face, you're going to find one.
Right.
Now, the way to differentiate in my book between a dust particle or a bug or whatever and an actual light anomaly is when you can associate it with something else happening at the same time.
Right. Confirmation.
So if let's say an orb, if you will, flies into the screen right now, hits me in the head, and then flies off, and then you see me go like, oh, oh, okay,
Right.
that's
Yeah.
two things.
Right.
Two things. That's what you need to verify if it's real or not. To me, that's what I need to verify. Otherwise, you can't prove that it is or isn't because there's just so much that it could be that
Right.
it's not a way of spirit travel or any kind of entity around you, unless you have at least two things.
Right. And I agree with you a lot on this subject, and which is why I brought it up. But the mostly why I brought it up is because your idea of what an orb is.
Mm-hmm.
We talked, quite a while back about this same thing a little bit, and I thought your idea of what an orb is or what it even is doing was fascinating. That it's kind of a mode of travel for a spirit and its energy. I found very fascinating because I had never heard anybody bring up that theory before, that idea,
Hmm.
and I've come to study a little bit about it, and I'm really starting to come to your side to think that what you're saying is
Could be
very
true, huh?
feasible, very feasible,
Yeah,
right?
could be. Yeah,
Now,
could be. And again, I have to say that none of us are going to know 100%. This is,
correct.
the paranormal field is experience, theory, and science all together.
Right. Absolutely. Now I have come across some orbs where you can tell. I don't think people understand that your house breathes as tight as you think it is and as, closed up as you think it is. Look at any piece of furniture or shelf and you have dust on it. It gets there because it floats there. So, the movement of a light anomaly that people, an orb that
Mm-hmm.
people, I think they may not understand how you know uh dynamics like aerodynamics kind of works, but I have seen a few orbs that I would tend to think that is more real, and it's
Mm-hmm.
because of that confirmation. I witnessed an orb of a lady that posted an orb. Her dog had passed, and an orb moves kind of not in a normal dust pattern, how they just kind of float and feel, but kind of like that. And if you really look into it, you can see a dog. Okay.
Okay.
Um,
Yeah. No, I am by no means disclaiming orbs as nothing. I'm not
right.
saying
Absolutely. Absolutely.
I totally believe that orbs are a thing. What I am saying is that 99.9% of all the so-called orbs that people seeing are not orbs at all, and
Yeah. They're
they're just
explainable.
natural things that appear in our air.
Right. Right. They're explainable. Now, this
Right.
particular orb, when it came by, it went by another dog that they had of the family, and the dog reacted to it.
Oh,
Which is what led me to believe that that was an actual orb. Uh,
right.
but
Right.
when you blow it up, it looked like the dog that had passed.
That's very
So
interesting.
there was a face in it. But I think in general, what you said about pareidolia is you're gonna find a face if you want to see a face. I
Mhm.
think there are those rare exceptions where it could be true, but on as a whole, it's probably you're gonna see a face if you want to see a face.
Right. And I'm not saying that they're all that way. What I'm
Right.
trying to do is explain there's too many people that jump to that's an orb for sure, blah blah blah,
Right.
before they examine the whole situation and environment. And that's
Right.
a mistake. It's a very all too common mistake.
Right.
Um it's I'm sure you just like I have been forwarded and shared so many orb videos that it makes you want to throw up.
Right.
But it's that one that is like, oh, we wait for that one video
Right. Right.
that's like, damn, you
Right.
know.
Exactly. Exactly. And you're right. I try to be honest with people as far as what I think it may be, but I always give
Right.
people kind of the hope of, I wasn't there. Um,
Yeah.
like, so maybe further investigation is needed. Maybe you get a voice recorder and see if you catch anything to confirm that maybe what you saw is an actual light anomaly and not just a piece of dust. But I try to be honest with people that, hey, I've seen a lot of orbs in my life, and this one looks like dust, or this
Oh,
one looks like, moisture in the air. They're outside, and you take a
yeah, a lot of people get
picture.
upset when you tell them that, though. They'll get
Right,
upset.
right. So,
They
and
want to be grandma or their brother that passed
right,
away, or
and
something. So it's hard to tell people that I'm sorry, that's not what you're looking at,
right,
or
and
I don't believe that's what you're looking at.
right, and I try to be honest with them, but I also do say, but I wasn't there, and maybe you need to investigate more, because
Right,
I could be wrong. You might catch something that would suggest that this light anomaly is what it is. But
right.
right now, with the evidence I have, I can't
This
say
point.
yes or no because it looks like this to me. And
Right,
people still do get upset, but I mean, I can't. I don't want to lie to people about this.
right. You don't want to falsely inflate the idea of it being something
Right.
they
Right.
because they want it to be.
Right.
So
Not everything is paranormal.
right, how amen to that.
Right.
Amen.
Let me ask you another quick question about the light anomalies, orbs, if you will. Um, you know, I've seen some with my own eyes. Would that,
Mhm.
in your opinion, would that lend more credence to being an actual?
Absolutely does. Absolutely. Uh, if you see it with your own eyes, that is by far, in my shoots you to the top of the list.
Right.
I cannot stress enough that if you see something that is emitting its own light in real life without looking through a camera lens,
Right.
you go, and I'm not saying automatically that it is, but it definitely shoots you to the top of the list of possibilities.
True.
That is most likely. I'll just go ahead and say it. That's most likely a spirit energy.
Right. Right.
does it naturally form? Does the earth have a natural energy forming thing where it could create a ball of energy? Yeah, it does, which is why I say it puts it to the top of the list. And I didn't say that it's automatically
Right. Yeah. Everything deserves more investigation with it. And the reason why I bring that up is because I actually witnessed an orb that lasted for minutes.
Sure.
And it was here at my farm. And it was near my barn, which, I think that my land was kind of here in the 1850s before the Civil War and was a stopping point.
Mm-hmm.
But I watched an orb with my own eyes and then realized, dude, why pull out your camera already? So I pulled out my camera and it was there for minutes. And I had the video evidence. I posted it on a YouTube channel I used to have with a few friends of mine, but it lasted a couple of minutes. And then I did investigation later on, a couple weeks later, and we caught EVPs in the area.
Anything relating to that in EVP form?
Nothing to say that the EVP was the voice that I caught, but where my barn is located now was a blacksmith shop. And one of the things that when soldiers would bring their horses through there, they would reshaw the horses, and do stuff like that. And the EVP I caught, I kind of made conversation of, hey, I've got a horse out here in the pasture, which I did.
Mm-hmm.
If I bring the horse up here, can you, throw some shoes on? And the EVP that I caught was bring her in.
What?
Now, what was funny is I didn't specify whether it was a male or female horse, but it knew because that horse was in and out of that barn constantly.
I love that stuff. Love it.
Right.
Love that.
And the light anomaly was right at the corner of where that my barn is and where the blacksmith shop was at one time. So it was kind of confirmation, but I did see it with my own eyes, and I always felt like that was legitimate, but I had people ask questions. Well, maybe it's because I have a big barn light that's out in the driveway that is just before where I saw the light. And I was like, I don't know, because I moved position. I tried to see if it was lens flare. I walked out there to it and it was there. And it was not my barn light that I could see with my own light. I don't get lens flare in my own eyes,
Right. Exactly.
I'll ask you another question. Have you had an experience in your paranormal investigating that really just kind of touched your heart and stuck with you?
It has, yes. And it goes back to, I think I can predict, I can go back to the year even. I believe it was 2015. And I was asked, I was with a team that wasn't mine. I was with a team at the time. And I was asked to lead this crew into investigating an apartment and it was on the second floor. Now, anyone that knows anything about paranormal investigating knows that apartments are the hardest to do because of all the risk of outside interference, whether it be, neighbors bottom, on the top, and then left or right.
Right.
And then, of course, they all have kids and they all have dogs and cats that like to jump up on the towers and stuff. So it's constant battle against interference. But what got me to go there was I got a call. I got in touch with the lady that lived there. And if you could have heard this woman's voice when she was talking to me, her and her daughter were so scared that they were packing up bags as they were talking to me to get out of the house because they just could not stay there another night. They could not.
Right.
And they're like, please, I know you get a lot of calls that of people that might be crazy or want attention. I promise you, please just come over and just try to help us. Just try.
Yeah.
And that, it got me. I was there within a half an hour.
Yeah.
I went there, and try to make this long story short. Um, through EVP evidence, through yes and no questions that were asked, I did go there 2 nights in a row. By the end of the second night, we had enough uh, evidence for me to comfortably say, "Who is Carol?" Because it's Carol.
Okay.
Carol says hi. Who is Carol? The second I said the name Carol, the mom and daughter both broke down in tears. The mom came over, gave me the biggest hug that anybody can give. Just so grateful. Thank you. Turns out Carol was the mother and grandmother of these two women. And she was there, and there was confirmation that it was a pleasant visit and not a quote unquote haunting.
Right, right, right.
And after that night, they did spend that night out of the house because of everything going on. But
Right.
from the following night on, they stayed there. They called me 6 months later to thank me again.
Wow. Okay, Brandon, I here we'll switch gears a little bit because you and I have talked a little bit about cryptids, but I want to ask you, do you think cryptids belong in the umbrella of the paranormal? Like, is that something that we should be studying as a
I
paranormal instance?
as a as a paranormal investigation, you're what I've come across as all of that falls under the same category.
Right,
You're going to have your cryptids, you're going to have your, Loch Ness monsters and Bigfoot and all of that. That's all paranormal.
right,
Um, but like ghost hunting and paranormal investigation also fall under that category, but they're a little different, you know?
right. Kind of
Um,
like categories to the paranormal.
sure, subcategories. Um, as far as I'm cryptids, I believe there are out there. For instance, Wendigos and Skinwalkers. Um, they're one of the things that I hope I never run into.
Yeah.
I do. That's the last thing I ever want to see. You know,
Right.
and if I do see it, I hope it's half a block away. You know,
Correct. Correct.
um, and because I do believe they're out there, and I think there's way more out here in our existence and our plane that we don't know about and probably shouldn't know about.
Right.
You know what I'm getting at?
Right.
Like,
I hear you.
there's a lot out there that people are not ready to know exist.
Right. Right. It's kind of a
So,
faith shaker almost.
yeah, I believe in the Loch Ness monster. I want to believe in the Loch Ness monster.
Right.
I don't right now, but only because people are showing pictures of how it was faked and blah blah blah. But
Right. Right.
you know, Bigfoot is definitely a thing for sure.
I've had my own experience of what I think may have been, which
Yeah.
was a characteristic of tree knocking during a paranormal investigation or ghost hunt.
Mhm.
We were outside in government woods and started experiencing what people describe as far as characters of a Bigfoot.
Mhm.
I've spent a lot of time in tree stands in the woods hunting and heard things that I'm just can't quite explain. I've heard all kinds of animals make all kinds of noises and can't explain. So I wanted to ask you that question just because, as paranormal investigators, kind of in the spirit subculture there, I always wonder if you know if we also believe or if others also believe that there's other things besides just spirits that
Oh,
could be
definitely.
lurking out there in the
Mhm.
wee spaces of the world.
Absolutely. Absolutely. You
So
know,
now I also have to ask you because everybody knows that Real Ghost Hunter 1 has an oddities collection that is top of the line. There's been some pieces that I've seen of yours that, God, I mean, like I'd shoot my own ass just to get a chance to look at it. You know what I mean? Um,
Sure.
you had a ritual death skull, a ritual skull at one point that was phenomenal to me, and I was a skull collector, but
Mm.
maybe what's been one of the pieces in your collection that you've really enjoyed, that you have now that's been a favorite of yours or had in the past and wish you hadn't gotten rid of it?
Well, the pride of uh the pride of my collection right now is what you see behind me.
This,
This is my Oddfellows ritual skeleton.
right.
Okay, in that case.
That is another favorite of mine, by the way.
That is the only one I have ever seen,
Yeah,
much less have in my possession.
not common to get a secret society's ritualistic tool.
It is absolutely real, documented from the Oddfellow Society, and there's a lot of, I don't know. It's one of the coolest pieces I own and probably will ever own. There's a few things that I've had. I've had human skulls before. One of them
Right.
was actually active and possessed by, not, I don't know if you want to call it possessed, but there was an entity attached to it, by that called itself Matt.
Okay.
Matt was the human skull that actually would talk to us.
Oh, wow.
The Another one I had was a headhunter's trophy of a human skull that had, the native stuff with it and the bone through the nose, and a headhunter's trophy. If you don't know what they look like, feel free to Google them.
Yeah, yeah.
But there's been several things that I've had. Another one that I had was we'll call it an action figure.
Okay.
By the name of Felipe, which I kind of regret getting rid of.
Right.
But because he was very talkative, and the person that has him now does nothing with him, at least that I know of. But as far as stuff that I get, and my collection changes almost weekly.
Right.
I'll put stuff, because I have stuff that I've collected over the years that I don't show people. Like I have one particular thing that I've told people I have, which is it's a doll, but it's locked up and it stays there since I got it. It was a gift that was given to me by a very trusted person, respected, and nobody will ever see it.
Okay.
It's just not something that needs to be brought into the public.
One of those things that's better left locked up.
Yes, definitely. And I'm not saying that as, ooh, I have something cool, because I wish I didn't have it.
Wow.
So, but other than that, like I get all sorts of, real old postmortem photos. I get, I try to get stuff that the average person never gets a chance to see.
Right. Right.
So,
and you do auctions once in a while, because I know that you kind of shift your collection to make new stuff, because you have.
I get lots of, I have, how do I put this? I have the type of friends who deal with this type of stuff, and they always call me when they get something cool in, and I can't say no when I go look at it. I'm like, oh my God, that's awesome. Right. I gotta have that. And sometimes it takes me a few weeks or months or years to even convince them to let me have it,
Right.
And so as I get stuff in, I'm basically allowed myself this one area in my home to have all this stuff. And at certain times it gets pretty packed. And and
Right.
there's stuff that I pick up that's cool, but not stuff that I necessarily need to hang on to because I can get more of it, you
Right.
know.
Right.
So I'm willing to let some of that stuff go. And if I can bring that to the public and let people see it, and possibly if they really want it, they can own it, even better, you know. Then
Right.
they get one little piece of my weird world, and hey, welcome to it.
Right. And I've seen your auctions before. The stuff that you have, even some of the stuff that you've offered up,
Hmm.
I'm just like, man, I would, like I said, I'd shoot myself in the ass to get a chance at it if I could afford it to have a collection and had some place to display it.
Hmm.
Is my big thing. I just don't. I would have to build a whole nother part to my house because when I start collecting that stuff, I go crazy. But
Yeah,
you've
it is.
had some really cool stuff that you've even offered up for people to buy that have gotten new homes, which I think is awesome because your collection is always kind of changing and evolving.
Mhm.
But you always have some of the greatest pieces, like the skeleton behind you. Like if you
Yes,
ever get rid of that, I'm gonna come to your house and have a real stern talking to you about it.
well, it's just like anything else, it's like if if you want something that I have that is not for sale, it could be for sale. You just
Okay.
got to know how to ask.
Right. Right. Yeah, you
you
have some
know.
great pieces. I think I told you before that I used to collect skulls. Many of mine were animal skulls.
Mm.
Unfortunately, I lost that in the fire, but I have this huge thing about skulls. I don't know why. I've just always been drawn to having a collection of them. And you've had some really great ones that I've been like, man, what a
Oh yeah,
collection, you know?
bear. I've had, as far as animal skulls go, I've had a bear skull. I've had fox skulls. I still have some fox skulls. I still have mink skulls.
Mm-hmm.
Um, what else have I had? Beaver skull, coyote skull. Um, at any time I want, I can get a tiger skull.
Oh
Anytime I
wow.
want. Oh
Oh,
yeah. If
that's
I
great.
want right now, I could call up my buddy and get a full skeleton of a tiger
That's
right
great.
now.
That's awesome.
Mm-hmm.
That's awesome.
Yeah, because he's got it just sitting there. I've seen it hundreds of times. Yeah, it's I have people think I'm weird, but if you knew who my friends were, you'd think I'm normal.
Right, right.
Yeah.
Now, let me ask you, what's your favorite particular type of oddity? Are you into skulls like I am, or are you just so general that it doesn't really matter?
No, my favorite oddities are the ones where you look at and like you never realized that they existed.
Right, that's
Like
cool.
the first time I saw the Headhunters trophy, I had no idea that there was such a thing.
Right,
And I was amazed by it and I had to have it and I paid top dollar for it.
right.
Um, but um, I usually come across that type of stuff when I'm not looking for it.
As per
Like this skeleton behind me, had no idea I was even picking that up when I was there. I went and asked my buddy if he
really.
had anything interesting that he had just acquired recently, and he's like, "Oh, I got something." Okay, and he's like, "How much money did you bring on you?
Right. Sounds
How much you
expensive.
got on it?" And I said, "Oh, oh," because I know when he says that, it's going to be good. It's going to
Right,
be good.
right.
But through through a lot of negotiation, I ended up bringing that home, the skeleton.
Like
So
I'm glad you did because I love the thing. I'm not even gonna lie.
yeah, it is. It
I'm
is
so
pretty cool.
jealous.
Pretty cool. I'll show it a little bit right there.
I
Right
am
there.
so jealous of. Now, didn't that come in a coffin or something like that? Like it was in the ritual
The
coffin?
story is well, it's not a story. It's facts. It was displayed for the Oddfellows in a coffin. And when the person from that got it from the Oddfellows got it, sold it to this another gentleman, he had already sold off the coffin to someone else for whatever reason, but they didn't want the skeleton. They only wanted the coffin. So he broke the pair up.
Oh, wow.
Okay. So he didn't have anywhere to go with the skeleton. So he tied it to a chair and he threw it in the back of his garage.
Okay.
And that's where it sat for 45 years.
Wow.
Sat there, fully intact, strapped to a chair, tied down like he was sitting in an electric chair, tied on the head, tied on the arms, and on the legs. It was just tied into the chair, and there it sat for 45 years until, and then this guy that I got it from got it. He was friends with the guy who had it sitting in his garage for 45 years. He was friends with him. They were friends.
Yeah.
And apparently it started off as there were two skeletons. One is long gone. We don't know where it is. Okay. Disappeared 30, 40 years ago.
Okay.
But this one hung out in the garage, and then he had it, and he brought me into his secret back room where he had this thing. And I'm like, as soon as I saw it sitting in the chair, I was like, wow.
Right.
I got to know more about this. Well, then he told me how much it was. And then I made a trip to the bank.
Right.
And I came back and I said, I can't afford quite that much. You know,
right.
Can we work something out? You know, and we did. And I brought it home and I got a case for it off of Facebook Marketplace. That looks like a coffin.
Right.
Kind of.
Yeah.
You know, it's got the peak at the top. Perfect. Got some lights for it, displayed it. And it's great. It looks great in here.
It's an excellent piece. I don't even want to get into how much that cost you, because I know that I've looked into human skulls that were, $5,000 to $10,000 range. We're talking, so I can only imagine what a full skeleton costs.
Well, I mean, you can pick up a full skeleton, a full real skeleton. Well, let me rephrase that. I can pick up any day of the week, pick up a full skeleton for about 10 grand.
Right.
Now finding one from a secret society used in rituals, that's a whole other story.
Right. Whole different story. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. You don't typically see ritualistic items from secret societies up for sale. I mean,
and that's another thing that I like to collect is ritual associated stuff, I guess you could say, because I also have a dagger that was used in a love ritual that still has the blood on it from the ritual, and I got it from someone that was in the ritual. So I know it's real.
Holy shit.
Yeah.
Damn.
Yeah.
That's the kind of thing that you have to have weird friends to come across it.
Absolutely. That's exactly what it is. Yeah. I set it down. I think it's over there somewhere. But anyway, I was going to show it to you.
Yeah.
But that'll have to be another time. You'll have to invite me back.
Yeah. Anytime you want to come back and have the time. Absolutely. Because, I always love talking to you, and we have great conversations.
We do.
Very intelligent, thought-provoking conversations, kind of like your orb theory of it's how it moves. That's just a mode of transportation for it, kind of.
Well, and it really makes sense if you think about it, doesn't it?
It really does. And after some more thought, and a lot of times you'll bring up stuff, and I'm like, I don't know. I don't think I've thought about it that hard, but you bring up something that's very thought-provoking, and I'd be like, well, now that he mentions it, let me look at stuff and let me try to remember my experiences, and hell, that does make sense.
I love hearing that. That what I say makes people think about things. That's my goal. I love that. That's it makes you consider another way of thinking about it, you know?
Right.
Just
And
like, oh, go ahead.
our conversations are typically thought provoking, and I don't and I don't say this with any disrespect. I don't always agree with some
Hmm.
of the things just because I've had different experiences, but that doesn't negate from why you think and based on your experiences. I'm very
Right.
open to that. We don't always agree, but I think probably more often than not, I really, once I think about it, um, what you say makes perfect sense. Like it's a very valuable outlook on it, on
Well, I'm
a
glad to hear
particular
that,
situation.
and no matter what, I mean, you could come out. I mean, Jesus himself could have reappear as the second coming,
Right.
and there'd be people out there who don't believe it's him,
Right.
you know. And I'm not comparing myself to that at all. I'm just using an extreme example.
Right.
Um, but it's like you could show people ultimate proof that spirits exist, and they'll find a way to not believe it. You know
Right.
what I mean?
Yeah, the world is a funny place. We were talking about this earlier before the show, where you'll see a video and it's most clearly and undeniably fake,
Hmm.
and it has millions of views, hundreds of thousands of likes, and then I show an actual shadow figure and crickets.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like,
Yep. Yeah, and you get nothing. Nope.
right, yeah.
Nope.
People are into the dramatic, and I understand it's great entertainment.
Yeah, it is. I mean, I watch it too. You know,
Right,
I
yeah.
I'll watch the shock and awe stuff. Do I believe it? No, but it is entertaining. You know.
Right. And I think there's a value to that. And I think you and I have talked about this before. There's my opinion is, and this is kind of the last question I want to end on,
Okay.
is when you see these paranormal shows, do you think that there is, even though they're very entertaining, maybe not so much truthful, do you believe that there is a value to it as far as bringing people to the paranormal?
I think it's because of these shows that the paranormal world is so hot right now and
Right.
is so popular. And a perfect example of that is what 2.5 years ago when I found the app where we met, TikTok.
Mm-hmm.
That there was very few paranormal people on there.
Right.
Now it seems like there's 20, 30, 40 a day that pop up.
Right. Right.
And, everybody that, well, I might ruffle a few feathers if I say that. Well, maybe I'll say it anyway. Anybody that gets a phone app and a doll think they're a paranormal investigator
Right.
nowadays.
Right.
And it's a little insulting, but at the same time, you got to let them be them and do their thing and
Right.
get their own experiences. So, you're torn between, do you want to help them, or do you want to, let them experience things on their own? And you can't criticize anybody nowadays. So
Right.
you
Right.
can't say I try to offer a little bit of help and guidance based on, the experience that I already have. But some people take that as a, he's a know-it-all. And that's not what I'm trying to say. I'm just,
Right. Right.
take
Misinterpreted.
my years of experience and benefit yourself from that.
Right. And I've tried to tell people that too. Like, I haven't always been so serious into the paranormal, but I've been gathering my own experiences over the last 20 years. Um, whether that's good or bad, or whether you find what I say, worthwhile is up
Hmm.
to you. But, um, if somebody, I used to go, well, hey, what, you should try using a voice recorder in that situation. I think you might enjoy using that and getting the experience, and I think you'll catch something.
Hmm.
But where now I leave it alone,
Yep.
because people think I'm being critical of them, and I'm not. I'm just, I've done it. I was in your situation, and here's what worked for me. But I
Right.
really think that as investigators, as true paranormal researchers,
Hmm.
it's a much deeper topic than just the average ghost hunting people trying to get experiences, which I'm all for. If it brings people to accept and understand the paranormal, I'm all for that. I don't particularly follow and watch or support people that are more dramatic or stuff like that, but I think it still has value as far as drawing people in to be maybe open their mind to it.
Right. It brings people, acknowledges that there's that field out there, and it brings
Right.
it to it.
Right.
Yeah. If nothing else, it does that.
Right. And I don't know how you feel, but um I really think that the getting into the details of it, doing research, um, going out there and capturing that evidence and not considering everything paranormal. I think like you and I think a lot alike where we have that skepticism of, can I confirm this? Am I getting the scenario that I think this is that being supported by actual evidence? I think if more people acted in that manner, we'd probably be advancing the paranormal much faster than
Right.
we are. But I think there's value in a lot of stuff. I don't know how you feel if you think kind of this.
No, absolutely. And it leads me to the one thought that I often have, and I've said it in the past, but as an investigator, if you have possible evidence, but it could possibly be explained, throw it out.
Right. That's what I do.
Throw it. Don't even offer that up as a possible evidence. You know what I mean? Like if you're just going on and entertaining people, that's one thing. But if you're leading people to believe that that's actual evidence and saying that that's actual evidence,
Right.
that's wrong. That's wrong.
Right.
That's
And
that's
and I've done myself where I've caught something and I'm like, I'm not 100% sure on this. Maybe
But
somebody
as
else.
long as you say that, as long as you say, now this came up, it was really interesting. I'm not sure if it is or not, make up your own mind. That's a
Right.
great way to go about it, you
Right.
know?
In my area, the Civil War is very big. I live near a couple of battlefields, and so it's not uncommon to come across Civil War type residual, especially,
Mm-hmm.
but some intelligent stuff and stuff that I just don't even know how to explain it. And
Sure.
I happened to be outside recording a lightning storm one time, and in the middle of that, I thought I saw what looked to be a Civil War soldier with a bayonet or a musket with a bayonet. But I
Okay.
wasn't 100% sure, you know? So I kind of put it out there, but I told everybody, what do you think this is? Do you think this is
Mm.
something paranormal, or, give me your opinion, because I'm not 100% sure, but I've always been honest of what, I catch an EVP. Okay, listen, I caught an EVP. It sounds pretty undeniable to me. It's class A. It's
Right.
answering a direct question. That's more factual, but there's times you come across stuff that you're just like, well, what do you guys think? I
Sure.
don't know.
Yeah.
So I think offering that up, but being honest about, hey, this may not be paranormal at all. It could be
That's the
paranormal because
key.
of the tree leaves,
Yeah, that's the key. That's the key.
honesty. Yeah.
Yep. You just have to be honest with your audience. If it you know it if there's a chance it could have been, interference from somebody outside, then, hey, say that, because as long as you're honest with people, they'll respect you for that.
Right. Yeah. That what you're going to give them is going to be truthful and legitimate.
Mm-hmm.
I would much rather preserve my, um, what's the word I want to say? My integrity, and show you
Mm-hmm.
something that I believe to be true, or be honest with you and say, I'm not 100% sure. What do you guys think?
Right.
And I've got responses of, oh yeah, that's totally it. Well, let's be a little more, dig
Right.
in a little bit more than just accepting, because
Yeah.
I'm not sure. So you shouldn't necessarily move
Right.
that quickly,
Right. Exactly.
you
It's
know?
my evidence, and if I'm not sure, you shouldn't be either.
Right.
Right.
But I think that's a big thing in our field. I wish we saw more of it, but I do, I don't disparage anybody who goes out there with a, a ghost tube app and, a camera and does their thing and tries to have the experience. I'm perfectly fine with that. I just, I want people to understand the research, like what you're looking into, what you're going out there to find were people. It's have some respect for them in that regard.
Right.
Just as you would want that respect yourself, give that to them.
Mm-hmm.
Don't always see that. I think there's a lot of creators that I really enjoy, and if you showed me a piece of evidence like the picture, the infamous picture, like holy shit, that is crazy. Like I trust and believe you enough, and believe in your integrity enough, that I would take that and go, that is evidence.
Yeah,
that is evidence.
Yeah, it was pretty shocking.
I couldn't get over. I think I watched that video. Probably 500 of the views on there was me just rewatching that video.
That's
I'm
awesome.
not gonna lie, I kind of geek out on it a little bit. I was like, no way. There's no way. There's no way you caught this. I had to watch it several times. But
yeah,
Brendan, I really appreciate you coming on the show. I definitely would love to have you come back to the show. I hope in the future that you would agree to come back, because I love having these conversations with you.
Yeah, it's interesting topics. I enjoy it. Thanks for having me here. I appreciate that.
Absolutely. And you are welcome on the show anytime. Really love what you do. I can't say enough good about you and the things that you do, your storytelling,
thank you so much.
Your communication sessions, with your infamous personality, Adam. Really enjoy what you're doing. I hope you keep that up. And I thank you.
No, you're very, very welcome. I appreciate you having me on here. And I hope we can do it again.
Most definitely.
That's until next time, I guess, huh?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Now, for everybody listening, if you guys will just hang on just one more minute, you'll get to hear how you can get a hold of the show, not just Paranormal Unveiling or PSI itself, but where you can find us on TikTok. And for anybody looking for Brandon here on TikTok, it is Real Ghost Hunter 1, all one word, on TikTok. Do you have any other platforms that they can find you on that you'd like to speak on?
Yeah, I'm actually I have a YouTube channel as well with the same name, Real Ghost Hunter 1. So I'm on YouTube, Instagram, and TikTok right now.
All same name.
All the same name.
All right, great. I really appreciate it. And if you guys don't get out there to check him out, I don't know what you're doing. Like, I literally don't know what you're doing, because this guy if you just love stories, this guy is your guy. This guy is your guy. He's got so much different content that it's so unbelievable that I'm just going to tell you, you're missing out if you're not watching what he's doing. Great guy, not just personally, but professionally. Great person, great content. Love you guys. Make sure you listen to the last minute of the video, and we appreciate you all coming in and listen to us jabber. All right, Brandon, we'll see you. Thank you.
Thanks again.
All right. Thank you for listening to the show. And remember, we want to hear from you. Do you have questions about the paranormal, about mediumship? Do you have a story of an experience you just can't explain? Well, do us a favor. Email us at paranormalscienceinvestigators@gmail.com. And your question or story may end up on the show. And if you'd like to see our video content, you can check us out on YouTube at paranormal_investigators, or on TikTok with the same name, or if you'd like to do Instagram, it's Josh_paranormal_investigators. Come check out our video content of actual paranormal investigations and our everyday content. Just look for the yellow PSI logo. Thank you again. We'll see you on the next episode. Love y'all. Bye-bye.